The text came at 10 minutes to go right when the beet salad was glowing like rubies and my daughter's confidence was held together with frosting and adrenaline. We've decided to celebrate at a restaurant. It's adults only. No punctuation, no apology. In the kitchen doorway, I watched 17-year-old Ava hover over her lavender glaze with the fervor of a surgeon smiling in that bright, exhausted way that belongs to cooking finalists and brides with second thoughts. Time in the air, butter in the oven menus, printed place cards inked by hand. She had cooked for 23 people, and the message 2 sentences of erasure turned the room colder than a walk-in freezer. I called my father first. He was cheerful and already seated. My mother sounded inconvenienced, as if kindness were a hazard warning. My sister was pragmatic in the way of people who are never asked to lift. Don't guilt everyone. She's 17. The word test subjects was used. I hung up before my mouth could betray me. When Ava saw the family thread her grandparents beaming in a restaurant, my father mid-toast kids, who are not quite adults, grinning over plates she did not cook, her face folded quietly like a paper flower set in water and left to collapse. She didn't sob. She apologized to the air for taking up space. I wanted to tell her that the air belonged to her, that I would fight anyone who charged her rent for breathing. Instead, I stared at the cake she had made for my mother, 3 tiers, rosettes, violets, sugared like first snow. Happy 67th in dark chocolate curls. A cathedral in buttercream, the kind of thing strangers put behind glass. The kitchen smelled expensive because Ava is that kind of meticulous. She began at 5:00 a.m. Steamed floors twice remade, what burned planned for allergies banished mushrooms for my father and cilantro. For my mother crafted sugar-free pear tarts for a diabetic neighbor who would never be invited. She had borrowed a friend's turntable and practiced clean frosting lines until her hands shook. She had curled her hair. She had set the table with name cards and flowers and the kind of hope that tastes like lemon zest when you lick your fingers. And the family who raised me decided it was safer and easier to sit under dim restaurant lighting and pay someone else to be reliable. I would like to say I made a noble choice. The truth is something colder. When the charge hit my phone, a payment notification for $1,327.90 on the business card I use when I'm funding everyone's emergencies, I laughed. A clean, stunned laugh because there is hilarity in watching people who are carelessly cruel also be sloppy. They had used my card to pay for the dinner that replaced my daughter's feast. It wasn't enough to erase her. They sent me the bill for the eraser. I am a second daughter, a surprise but sweet one, which in our language meant be useful and invisible. My sister was the one they wanted, graceful, luminous, applauded for spinning in circles. I learned to repair what broke and was told to stop touching man-things. They financed every shimmering recital and called my hands unladylike when I asked for a weekend course in leatherwork. I built a small business anyway, custom home goods, wood, and hand-sewn pieces with my husband, and they patted it like a hobby horse. My money was treated like community property, my opinions like spam. I paid quietly often and without thanks. And then I had Ava, my daughter, who tastes soup and says it needs emotional depth, who reads restaurant reviews as philosophy, who wakes at 5:00 a.m. because butter likes discipline and sugar respects heat. She is me, but braver. I watched them try to press her into something pastel and sensible. She refused. When she asked to cook my mother's birthday dinner, just me, the whole thing, I asked 3 times if she was sure. She said yes with her whole body. For 3 days, she cooked until the house itself smelled like handiwork and risk. She made menus, took orders from no one, and still considered everyone. Before 4:00 p.m., she was radiant, wrecked, ready. By 4:50 p.m., my parents were clinking glasses across town. By 4:52 p.m., my hands had stopped shaking and gone very, very still. Ava stood at the cake like a soldier at a fallen standard. "We should throw it all out," she said, voice thin but steady. It would have been merciful to say yes, to let the night die quietly and teach her that dignity is a private room where no one watches you bleed. But I am done being merciful to the wrong people. No, I said. If they won't eat it, someone else will. It wasn't a plan yet. It was a pulse. I called my husband and told him to come home. Then I started dialing beyond the family perimeter. Neighbors' friends we see twice a year, the cousin my father sidelines for telling the truth, the woman from the charity bake sale, the receptionist at my dentist who once asked for a good pound cake recipe. I spoke with the frankness of an emergency. My daughter cooked for 23. They abandoned her. I need people who can eat. Cars began to land in our driveway like bright-winged birds. A neighbor brought wine and an uncle who had nowhere else to be. Tulips arrived in someone's frightened hands. Ava, whispering, "Oh my God," into the oven door, looked at me like I had set a bonfire in our dining room. This isn't pity, I told her when she accused me with her eyes. This is defiance. And right then, as chairs scraped and conversations hesitantly began, the doorbell rang again, and a woman with a small camera bag stepped into our hallway with the grace of fresh trouble and said she'd heard what happened. She worked in food media, she said. Would it be all right if she tasted a few things? Ava froze at the threshold, apron strings twisted in her hands the same way a singer freezes when asked to perform without warning. Her cheeks flushed scarlet, and I could almost hear her heart stumble. I answered for her. Yes, please taste everything. The journalist opened a notebook, lifted her camera, and began capturing what my family had chosen to ignore. She asked about the glaze, the diabetic tarts, the roast duck that still smelled of orange peel and cloves. She whispered to me, "She's better than some of the chefs I've reviewed." I bit my lips so hard it hurt. Tell her that, I whispered back. But Ava was already darting between stove and table, the nervous energy of someone who wants to earn a stranger's approval, but is too afraid to hope. By the time appetizers went out, every chair was filled. Neighbors, friends, forgotten cousins, people who had come because truth spreads faster than invitations. The kitchen buzzed like a restaurant at full tilt. Ava peeked out from behind the door, eyes wide. "Should I serve the appetizer?" she whispered. "No," I told her. "You should serve your menu." And she did. With trembling hands, she carried out her first course. The room quieted. Forks clinked. Then came the murmur's surprised delight, praise blooming like sudden spring. By the second course, there was applause. By dessert, someone stood and raised a glass to Ava, to the girl who cooked for 23, who turned rejection into a feast, who made food that tasted of courage. The room stood with him. A standing ovation. My daughter's eyes filled not with humiliation this time, but with the disbelief of someone finally being seen. The journalist never stopped writing. She photographed the cake, the candied violets, the lace of chocolate piping. She asked Ava to describe her inspiration, and for once Ava's words flowed like buttercream lavender, for calm pears, for sweetness without gilt duck, because it reminded her of winter Sundays at home. She had stories for every dish, and the journalist listened as though Ava were a headliner, and this was her debut. When the applause finally softened and plates were scraped clean, Ava's smile trembled, small but real. She cut the cake herself, steady now, the crowd leaning in as though each slice were sacred. I caught her glance across the room, a flash of pride too fierce to be extinguished. Later, when the house had quieted and the dishes stood like soldiers in the sink, the journalist emailed me the link. The article was already live. The headline read, "The birthday that wasn't how a teen chef cooked for 23 was abandoned and ended up hosting the dinner of the year." It praised Ava's skill, her vision, her grit. It told the whole story, not names, not direct blame, but the truth. A family chose convenience, and a girl chose resilience. I checked the comments. They multiplied by the minute. She's incredible. Where can I eat her food? Who abandons their granddaughter like that? Ava had fallen asleep on the couch, still wearing her apron, fingers curled as though she held a whisk. I let her sleep. I sat beside her and read until my eyes burned, knowing the story would not stop there. By morning, it hadn't. The article had spread further than I imagined, shared, reposted, debated. And just as dawn light touched the kitchen tiles, a sound cut through the stillness. Not footsteps, not cars. A silence that presses down before the knock comes hard. Angry, insistent. Bang, bang, bang. I dried my hands, peeked out the window, and almost laughed at the inevitability. There they were, my parents in matching windbreakers' faces twisted with fury. My sister stood just behind arms, folded her pose, rehearsed for maximum disdain. They had come to reclaim control, to scold, to demand silence. But this was not the house they left behind, and I was not the daughter they remembered. I opened the door but did not invite them in. My father's first words skipped past courtesy and went straight to command. "You need to fix this," he barked. My mother added, "Do you have any idea what you've done to our reputation?" My sister waited, letting them flare before she struck. I kept my arms crossed. What I've done. A journalist wrote about a dinner. She tasted the food. She told the truth, that's all. They shoved past me anyway into my hallway, into my kitchen, as though authority came with age and not with respect. My mother hissed, "You told the media we abandoned her?" I held my ground. I told no one. They saw for themselves. And honestly, they went easy on you. My father jabbed his finger, voice rising. Everyone at church read it. My golf group won't answer my calls. I lifted one eyebrow. Tragic. That's when my sister finally stepped forward. Her voice trembled with the calm of someone who has practiced being reasonable while plotting cruelty. "You need to say it was exaggerated, that it was taken out of context." I stared at her. Taken out of context? Did someone hack your thumbs and send that message from the restaurant? Did I imagine the charge of $1,327.90 on my card? Did Ava hallucinate the photos you all posted of your dinner? My mother's voice cracked, but she aimed it at Ava, who had stepped silently into the hallway behind me. "You should be ashamed of yourself," she spat. That was the moment my body moved without thought. 1 second, I was at the doorway. The next, I stood between them and my daughter. My husband came in, then the front door clicking shut behind him. He took one look at their faces, at Ava's tear-bright eyes, and understood without a word. He stepped forward, solid as a wall. "Out," he said. My father scoffed, his voice rising in that brittle bravado he used when cornered. "This is a family matter." My husband didn't blink. "No, this is my home. You came here to scream at a 17-year-old girl who made you dinner. You don't get to hurt her twice." He didn't shout. He didn't need to. His voice had the weight of finality, and for the first time, I saw my parents hesitate. They muttered, sputtered, tried to claw back control. My sister spat the words, "legal action," her chin jutting like she had already rehearsed the speech for a lawyer. But when I opened the door wide, they had no choice but to storm out, leaving behind the sour air of entitlement. Slam. Silence. For a moment, all I heard was Ava's breathing ragged behind me. I turned, ready to hold her, but she was staring out the living room window. "Mom?" she whispered. "Phones?" I followed her gaze. Across the street, 3 neighbors stood with cameras pointed at our house. In the middle was Jeff, the local Facebook moderator, who had live-streamed our last neighborhood barbecue. He wasn't smiling now. He looked stunned. I gave him a wave sharp enough to warn him off. Too late. That night, a video appeared online. The grandparents from that viral Teen Chef story just showed up at her house and screamed at her. Watch what they said. The internet did what it always does. It lit a fire. Comments flared, some harsh, most furious on Ava's behalf. Imagine being this bitter over a cake. Who yells at a child who just fed them? They sound like villains in a bad movie. One comment stuck with me. This is why some of us cut off our families. My parents texted in rapid succession before I blocked them. You've ruined us. Then we'll take legal action if you don't correct this. Finally, this is elder abuse. The absurdity of it would have been funny if it hadn't been so cruel. I didn't respond. I blocked their numbers, deleted the card they had used to pay for that dinner, and shut the door on that particular chapter of Betrayal. Instead, I posted something simple. We stand by every word, and we're done protecting people who hurt our daughter. I braced myself for backlash, but what came was a flood of support. Old friends reached out. Strangers sent Ava messages of encouragement. A local chef invited her to stage in his kitchen over the summer. A culinary program she had whispered about, too ambitious, too far out of reach, sent her a note saying they'd be watching her journey. It didn't erase the wound, but it poured light into the cracks. For the first time, Ava's talent wasn't just ours to see. The world was noticing. Months turned into a year. Ava never called my parents. Neither did I. We heard they moved 2 towns away, claiming they wanted a quieter life. In truth, too many friends had stopped inviting them. Too many neighbors had seen too much. They faded not with grace, but with the silence that follows when people no longer believe your story. Meanwhile, Ava soared. She got in. Not just anywhere into the program she thought was impossible, the one she whispered about in the quiet hours. Her food blog flourished. She catered small dinners baked for birthdays, even fielded requests from strangers who had read about her. Sometimes people at events mentioned that night, that article, that moment, when her dream collided with cruelty, and she stood taller anyway. And me, I learned something too. For years, I had paid for silence, poured my time and money into smoothing the cracks my family made. I thought loyalty meant swallowing pain whole. But that night, when a girl in a clean apron and curled hair was told she wasn't good enough before she even served the first course, I understood. Silence doesn't protect. It only shields the wrong people. Choosing my daughter meant burning the old script. It meant letting the world see the truth and watching who showed up to eat at our table when others walked away. One evening, as Ava prepped for a catering job, she turned to me with flour on her nose and said, "You know, Mom, I don't think I'll ever forget that night. Not because it hurt, but because it showed me who I am." I swallowed the lump in my throat and smiled. "And who's that?" She grinned. "Someone who can handle heat." I laughed because she was right. She was forged in that kitchen, not broken. And every time she cooks now, she carries that proof in her hands. The night she left for culinary school, the house felt too quiet, like even the walls were holding their breath. Her suitcase rattled against the steps apron strings tucked inside like holy relics. She hugged me hard, the kind of hug that leaves marks, and whispered, "Thank you for not letting them win." I kissed her hair, told her I was proud, and watched her vanish into the future she had built with her own hands. Later, alone in the kitchen, I pulled out the cake stand she'd once used for Grandma's birthday. It still smelled faintly of chocolate and Violet's ghosts of a night that had changed everything. I washed it slowly, carefully, as though polishing away the last of the family that had abandoned us. Except the truth is, I wasn't polishing them away. I was polishing her beginning. The silence didn't last long. Within weeks, Ava was sending photos from school, a plated duck breast seared to perfection, tarts lined up like jeweled soldiers, her face glowing with the exhaustion of someone who belonged in the fire. She wrote, "They push us harder than I thought possible, but I like it. It feels like home." Each message carried a kind of steadiness that made me realize something important. She had crossed the invisible line from proving herself to others into proving herself to herself. That is where real strength lives. My parents called once. I didn't answer. My sister wrote a long email filled with half apologies twisted into accusations. We never meant to hurt her, she wrote, but you escalated it by inviting outsiders. Families should keep things private. I stared at the words until they blurred, then clicked delete. They would never understand that privacy had always been their weapon, the blanket they pulled over, cruelty to keep it warm. Not anymore. My daughter's story lived in the open now, and that light was something they couldn't snuff out. As the months rolled on, Ava began picking up small catering jobs. People who had read the article wanted her food for anniversaries, birthdays, even quiet dinners. She posted recipes online, step-by-step videos, with her shy smile, and hands moving confidently over dough and saucepans. Comments piled in. Your hollandaise saved my brunch. This is better than any restaurant. When are you opening your own place? She laughed at those, but I could see the thought planting itself. One evening, she leaned across the table and asked, "Do you think I could really do it someday? Run my own restaurant?" I smiled. You already did, remember 23 guests, 3 days of cooking, and a standing ovation. The only difference will be a bigger kitchen. She laughed, then that same exhausted, glowing laugh she had worn the night of Grandma's abandoned birthday. But this time, it wasn't tinged with heartbreak. It was full of possibility. That was the real miracle. The wound had not become a scar to hide, but a map leading her forward. As for me, I let go of the quiet duty that had defined my role in the family. I stopped funding emergencies that weren't mine. I stopped swallowing insults with polite smiles. I learned that sometimes protecting your child means burning bridges, and sometimes it means building longer tables for the people who actually show up. That night had given us both a new kind of freedom, painful, yes, but cleansing. We didn't just survive it, we used it. Now, when I look back on that evening, the untouched roast duck, the cake glowing under the kitchen lights, the knock at the door 15 hours later, I see more than betrayal. I see the hinge on which our lives turned. My daughter's heartbreak became her headline. My silence became my refusal. Together, we found out that family isn't the people who share your name. It's the people who sit at your table when you're hurting and cheer when you stand back up. So, did I go too far or just far enough? I chose my daughter, and I'd do it again tomorrow without blinking. Because at the end of the day, the only reputation worth saving is hers, and the only legacy worth leaving is the courage to stand by the ones who matter. If you've ever had to make a choice like this, if you've ever stood up for someone you love, even when it meant losing the people who should have loved you first, then you know what I mean. And if you don't let this story be your reminder, you never regret choosing the people who choose you back. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more true stories like this. And don't forget to leave a comment. I'd love to know your thoughts.